go ahead and get going. Oh, there I am. I'm here. Let's go to page number 635. Hopefully you know this song. I grew up singing this. 635. Standing with a purpose true, holding hand, honored in the faithful few, all hail to Daniel's band. There to be a Daniel, there to stand alone, there to have a purpose firm, there to make it known. How many first time? Most everybody. All right. Well, I kind of thought Riley and I were talking about it. It's probably going to happen that way, but now you know the tune. Second verse, same tune. How's that? Here we go. Many mighty men are lost, daring not to stand. Thrown for God and in the host by joining Daniel's band. Dare to be a Daniel, dare to stand alone. Dare to have a purpose firm, dare to make it known. Many giants, great and tall, stalking through the land, headlong to the earth would fall if knit by Daniel's band. Dare to be a Daniel, dare to stand alone, dare to have a purpose firm, dare to make it known. Holding banner high on to victory grand, Satan and his host defiant shout for Daniel's band. Dare to be a Daniel, dare to stand alone, dare to have a purpose firm, dare to make it known. All right, it's okay to learn a new song on Sunday morning. You can be seated. Thank you, Riley. All right. So I got a question for you before we do prayer requests. What's the best thing about Switzerland? I don't know, but their flag's a real plus. I said, I don't know, but their flag is a real plus. Okay, courtesy laugh. Let's do something spiritual. Let's do some prayer requests. How's that? Don't worry, they don't get any better. That's why I don't tell jokes. All right. You got it, didn't you? See, he's laughing. Yes, Sherry?
Joke. Okay, so we show When Pigs Fly in Crystal River Friday night, and I don't know why we haven't thought of this, but the pastor had a altar call and had 3 saved.
Wow, awesome.
So that was just amazing. We will be showing it this Friday night at Live Oak. They do charge. We do not get this, but if you have not seen it, it is going to be at Live Oak at 7:30.
All right, good deal. Oh, before I forget, too, there's a sign-up sheet for Senior Saints activity. Where's it at? Somebody's got it right here. So make sure you sign up for it. It didn't quite make the bulletin this time, so make sure you get that as it's passed around. All right, next. All right, yes, ma'am.
Please be in prayer for a man named Jeremy. He's our custodian at Spring Hill Christian Academy, and he's been sick for a while. And then on Friday, he had to be taken to the ER because he just looked completely terrible while he was trying to do his job at the school. But he just needs some prayers for his health.
Okay, pray for Jeremy. Yes, sir.
Brother Allen here in our church, he has some serious blood pressure problems.
Okay. Anybody else? Right here, Anthony.
Dorothy is in the hospital with COVID, and then I have a friend who's, I'm sorry, her name's Mima, that's what I call her. She's close to the end, and she's a Christian. She's just unsure why God's still having her hang in there, but it's his will.
Mima. That works. All right, anybody else? Yes, sir, over here somewhere.
Pray for the Carters. They're not here today, and usually Bill will text one of us and let us know what's going on. I don't think we've got a text this morning, so usually if they're alive, they're here, so something must be going on.
All right, pray for the Carters. Yes, sir, Anthony. Oh, he's preaching in another church today. He's not dead. Yes, ma'am.
I have a friend in Royal Highlands area. Her name is Jennifer. Her husband passed away suddenly from a stroke, and she is very lonely. She says she's Catholic right now, but we're going to start a grief share group with the pastor and his wife, and just pray that she would come out and we could help her with her grief.
Okay. Yeah, Anthony.
Prayed last week for Catherine, and I just want to continue to keep her in prayer. She came out of a coma, but she's still not doing well, so just keep her. I'm praying that she's saved. She's Catholic, and praying somebody has a chance to give her the gospel more than anything else right now. But
Okay. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. Right over here, Anthony.
I have two sons, and they're having trouble with each other. And I would just pray that their hearts will tender, especially one of them. Just pray for them.
Mm-hmm. All right. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and pray, and then we'll get into Sunday school time. Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for the privilege and allowing us to be here today. And just a tremendous privilege, and we get to come several times a week, and I don't want to take that for granted. I don't want to take our pastor for granted. I don't want to take the fact that we have your word in our language for granted. I've known people that didn't have it in their language, and I pray that you'd please help us to be very thankful for that and grow in you. I pray that you please be with each one of these requests here. Thank you that when the pigs fly, that the showing went so well, and in the invitation, 3 people got saved. That's awesome. I pray that you'd please bless the Live Oak showing and others as they come up. And I pray you just please bless that project and just be much fruit from that. I pray you please be with Jeremy as he's got some health issues that he's trying to do his job, but health issues have caused problems. I pray you'd raise him up to his health and strength. Think of Alan with his blood pressure. I pray you'd stabilize that, put it where it's supposed to be. And I pray you'd please bless and help him. I pray you please be with Dorothy as she's got COVID. I pray you'd touch her body and take that virus from her. And think of Mima. I pray that you'd please give comfort in her life. I pray that you'd help Miss Joanna as she just close friends with her. I pray you'd help her to be an encouragement to her and just bless in a special way there. Think of the Carters. Help Brother Carter as he's preaching out today. I pray you give them good services and put the words into his mouth. Help him to know what to say, how to say it, and just bless in a special way there. Think of Jennifer as she's just going through a heavy grieving time with the loss of her husband. I pray you'd put the right people into her life that could be an encouragement and help to her. I pray you'd help her to just set her eyes on you. And I've never gone through that. I don't even really know how to pray for that, but I pray you just bring peace to her life and comfort. And I pray that there would be those that would be a help to her. And I pray that you please be with Catherine. Thank you that she's out of coma, but she's still in the hospital. I pray that you'd touch her body and whatever needs to take place there. I pray that you would raise her up to her health and strength. And then think of these 2 sons that were mentioned. And unfortunately, it could probably be mentioned in multiple families, that siblings that are fighting and can't get along, Lord. I pray that you would mend the rifts. I pray that you would draw them together, help them to get past whatever it is that's separating them, and I pray you'd bless there. Please guide and direct in all that's said and done today. I pray you'd help Pastor as he speaks today. Be with all the other Sunday school teachers as they speak. I think of the nursery workers and our ushers and just everybody doing things that nobody may even see. I pray that you'd please bless and guide and direct. Bless the special music today. And I just pray you make it a good day. I pray we'd be able to go home today and say it was good to be in your house. Bless now this time in Jesus' name and amen. All righty. Well, let's see here. Let's go to Daniel today, okay? Tony and his wife were taking Emily. There's her name. I know it started with an E. But taking Emily up to Pensacola, and I know it's going to be an emotional time for them too, because I've been down that road, and probably many of you have too. So pray for them, and I'm guessing they're still traveling, so I pray that you'd remember them as they travel. With that said, I have one shot here, so it's hard I can't do any series or anything, but those of you that know me know I like to do character studies. I like to learn from other people's successes and other people's failures instead of trying to reinvent the wheel and make my own mistakes and such. But Daniel is one of the characters in the Bible, and I know that should be a familiar name among us. And when I was asked to fill in for Tony, this is what immediately came to mind. So this is where we're going to go. But I really like the character of Daniel. If you look at his life, we're going to span the majority of his life in just a short time and just take some key attributes from it and make some application and such. But Daniel was a special guy. I think sometimes we look at Bible characters and we think there was something special in their DNA that made them superheroes or something like that. And that's not true. They were just normal people, but they'd made some decisions in their life. And Daniel is certainly one of those that guided the course of their life. And I want to look at some of that today. Daniel had, there were just some things in Daniel's life that could not change, that would not change, and ultimately did not change. And we'll see that as we go through his life here. So I just want to look at some things, just very simple, some different events that took place in his life, and just see what didn't change, and then how that may have transpired, how that took place that they didn't change. So let's start in Daniel chapter 1. Just for context-wise, we'll read the first 8 verses. I'm not going to preach expositorily. I'm going to pick around, and we're going to jump around a little bit, but we need to kind of get the idea. If you're at all unfamiliar with his life, this will kind of put it into context. It says, in the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem and besieged it. And pastors, actually, he's almost to the point there in preaching Jeremiah where this actual event is going to be taking place. It says in verse 2, and the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into the hand with part of the vessels of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Shinar, to the house of his gods, and he brought the vessels into the treasure house of his God. And the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of the eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of the Israel, of the king's seed, and of the princes, children in whom was no blemish, but well favored and skillful in all wisdom and cunning in knowledge and understanding science, and such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace. So you start seeing a picture of who these young people were. They're intelligent. They've got an upstanding demeanor about them. They can carry themselves in a really almost in a royal manner. They can stand in the king's house. So, I mean, these are the cream of the crop here, if you want to put it that way. But had understanding of science, and such as had the ability in them to stand in the king's palace, in whom they might teach the learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans. And the king appointed them a daily provision of the king's meat and of the wine which he drank, so nourishing them 3 years, that at the end thereof they might stand before the king. Now among these were the children of Judah, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, unto whom the prince of the eunuchs gave names, for he gave unto Daniel the name of Belteshazzar, and unto Hananiah of Shadrach, and to Mishael of Meshach, and to Azariah of Abednego. Now the famous verse, right? Verse number 8. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with a portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank thereof. Therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. And we're not going to read the whole story. We're going to stop right there. You know that he asked, and instead of getting all the good stuff, he asked for what? Pulse. Please feed us pulse. Look at us in a couple weeks and see if we're not any better than the rest. And so it's Daniel, it's Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And I got to thinking this morning, I was thinking about this. I thought, whoa, it wasn't just those four. There were others, weren't there? And that, when I started to think what the second point here this morning, it really started to put some things into contextually in my mind that he was among his peers, really, wasn't he? From the land of Judah, but there were others. It wasn't just the four of them. But Daniel, here's the first thing. We'll just jump right in. Daniel didn't let temptation change him. Daniel didn't let temptation change him. I said this isn't going to be deep stuff. Now, it's not really certain how old Daniel was at this time. It's not certain how old the other three were at this time. It's been surmised that maybe they are in their mid-teens, early teens, somewhere around there. Nobody really knows. Can we just, for sake of a number, can we say 15-ish? Will that work? And I don't know if it was 15. Maybe they were a little younger. Maybe they were a little older. I don't know. But these were young men of conviction. They were offered the same food as all the rest. They were certain of the king's seed. They were princes. But something was different about these four among the many, wasn't it? There was something different. Notice in the famous verse there in Daniel 1:8, but Daniel purposed in his heart. It's important for us to understand what words mean. I've just in the last 10 years or so, I got really, really cognizant about words and how words are put together. I'm not an English major. So don't ask me to dissect your sentence or anything like that. But words are important. We need to know what they mean. And purposed is a special word. It means steadfastly disposed. He was cast. This is the way he leaned. He was committed to this, that I am not going to defile myself, come what may, whatever the cost may be. I am purposed in heart that I am not going to defile my body with the king's meat, nor the wine that he drank. Now, I can remember when I was in basic training. How many of you went to basic? How many of you wanted to stick out in basic training? Be a target? No. You wanted to stay under the. You didn't want them to know your name. You didn't want them to know you existed, and that's what I was striving for. I didn't want him to know I was alive. He didn't even know my name until the second week. My drill instructor, but once he knew my name, things changed. But I just wanted to get through that time of captivity, if you will, and move on with life. And most people in the shoes of Daniel and his friends would have been trying to do that very same thing, wouldn't they? They've been taken out of their land. More than likely, their families have been killed. They're in a strange place. They're in a strange land. They're being asked of different things. They're being fed different things. They're in a different culture, a different language. All these things. Wouldn't you want to just try and, I'll just blend in? That's not what they did. Not at all. They didn't blend in at all. They weren't trying to be smart. They weren't trying to be arrogant in any way. They just had some convictions about them where they would not and could not compromise on. Listen, we need to have some areas in our life like that. Some places where this is what it says, this is where I stand, that's it. Like, I believe this book. It's where I stand. I don't care how many big words somebody says and how they're going to try and convince me. This is what I believe right here. I believe that God created the heaven and the earth. I've been taught all the evolution stuff. Doesn't change the fact that God still created the heaven and the earth. There needs to be some places where we stand firmly. Do you have some of those? I hope you do. But regardless of circumstances or the mandate or the cost of the convictions, they stayed intact, even as captives in a foreign land. Now listen, at this point in their life, it seems like they just got there from the way that it reads. They just got there, and they're going to feed him the king's meat and the food, the wine and such. So it looks like it's at the beginning, just reading the text. So give me a little leeway there. I don't know how long they'd been there, but it appears that way. Would you agree? Okay, so they're right at the beginning. And at this point, they had no pull, did they? They had no leverage, really. Now, they were given favor in the sight of the prince of the eunuchs because of the excellent spirit in them, but really, they had no pull. No, there was nothing to go on. They had no leverage on their behalf. He was considered wise. He was considered intelligent, but so were all the others that came along with him. Would we agree? It wasn't just the four of them. There were others too, and they were all in that same category. That's why they were brought to the king's house. But I believe Daniel had the idea if God was in his corner, that was enough. It's the same for us today. Listen, everybody, the whole world can be against us, but if God's in our corner, we're a majority in any crowd. It's just that way. Listen, do you have some convictions where you can stand on? Now listen, there was certainly opportunity to blend in, wasn't there? Remember a little while later, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Nebuchadnezzar builds a 90-foot statue of himself. Who does that? I mean, that's just, I think about that. I was thinking about, somebody was preaching on it here. This building is roughly, let's say it's 30, 35 feet tall on the outside. Nebuchadnezzar built a 90-foot statue of himself, 3 times as high as our building here, so everybody could get a good look at him. And when the trumpets blew and all that stuff took place, here's 3 guys, everybody else bowed down, 3 guys are still standing. Those 3 in Daniel were made of the same stuff, weren't they? There were some convictions about them that they just would not bend on. But they had opportunity to blend, certainly. And Joseph, he has much the same story, much the same attitude, much the same opportunity, doesn't he? He could have blended in. Esther could have blended in, couldn't she? But there was something different about him. I remember over in Galatians, Pastor preached through Galatians. I've thought about this a lot over the years. You remember when Paul got in Peter's face, stuck his finger in his face and said, "You're wrong." You remember that? Now that's John's version of it, but it says in Galatians chapter 2 and verse number 11, "But when Peter was come to Antioch, I withstood him to the face, because he was to be blamed. For before that certain came from James, he did eat with the Gentiles. But when they were come, being the Jews, he withdrew and separated himself, fearing them which were of the circumcision." He had some situational convictions about him, didn't he? Listen, do we have situational convictions? Depending the crowd we're in is how we're going to act. Depending the crowd we're in or the environment we're in or the area we're in, that's how we're going to act, or those are the convictions we're going to hold. If everybody else is doing it, well, you know, it's not that serious. Listen, are we situationally convicted on things? It's a good question to ask ourselves. But, they didn't have the book of James then. But I believe Daniel had a firm grasp of its principle in James chapter 4 and verse number 17. It says this, "Therefore to him that knoweth to do good and doeth it not, to him it's sin," isn't it? Listen, if it's wrong, isn't it? It doesn't matter who's around. It doesn't matter where we're at. It doesn't matter if you're in the workplace. It doesn't matter if you're in the home. It doesn't matter if you're at the supermarket, whatever. If it's wrong, it's wrong. And they had convictions about themselves that they shouldn't worship other gods, so they didn't bow down to that God. They had some convictions about themselves, they didn't want to partake of the king's meat that had been offered to idols. So they didn't want to partake. If it's wrong, it's wrong. Well, what if it cost them their head? Hey, they went to the grave with convictions intact. Let's just take a moment of self-examination here. Let's ask ourselves, am I situationally motivated in my convictions? Regardless the cost that may be incurred during that time, am I situationally motivated? And do I have situational convictions? It's a good thing to examine in our lives. Are there areas that I need to tweak and areas that I need to tighten up because I'm influenced by those on the outside? We talk to our kids a lot about this. And listen, you got to have some places where you won't bend. Daniel didn't let temptation change him, even though it was readily available. Here's the second thing. Let's go over to Daniel chapter 6. Another event in his life. This is the lead up to the den of lions. It wasn't the lion's den, it was the den of lions. Lions were home, okay, and they were hungry. So it was a den of lions. But here's the second thing in Daniel chapter 6. I'm not going to read this, all of this, but I do want to read, where was that? Verse number 10. I'll give you a brief synopsis here. There were others there that didn't like him. He was preferred by the king. And because of his excellent spirit about him, they didn't like him and they were going to eliminate him. He was going to be president of the presidents. He was going to be put in charge of the whole realm because of the testimony that he had, because of the excellent spirit that he had, because of the wisdom that he had, ultimately because of the convictions and steadfastness that he had. So if you can't get him on bad character, well, we'll get him on his convictions then. And we'll get him on his practices, his godly practices. We'll just get him on that. So they put together a letter and they bring it before the king and said, hey, king, if anybody worships anybody other than you for the next, I think it was 90 days, wasn't it? Something like that. That they'll be thrown in the den of lions. They already knew Daniel's practice. It says it right in here. But let's read verse number 10. Now when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went into his house, and his windows being open in his chamber toward Jerusalem, he knelt upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God. Now notice those words, those last 4 words there. As he did aforetime. As he did aforetime. Now, Esther, we could put her in the same category again, that trials didn't change him. Trials didn't change her. She said, you know what? I'm going to go before the king, and if I perish, I perish. I haven't been invited. If I perish, I perish. If the trial takes my life, come what may. But here's Daniel. He knows the decree's been signed. He knows it's a lawful order now. He knows that if he's caught doing what his normal everyday practice was, it could cost him dearly, ultimately, possibly his life. But again, I was reviewing this morning, and I realized, again, that he was among his peers, wasn't he? That really kind of hit home. That although there were others that were taken of the king's house, of the princes, of the whole category there, I can't remember all the names for them. But there were others other than Daniel and the other 3, wasn't there? And here's the attitude, that if we can't beat him at his character, we'll beat him at his convictions. These were his own countrymen. And that would be like somebody in our church saying, you know what? They got too good a character. They make me look too bad. So I'm going to figure out a way to use what they believe against them and try and take them out that way. That's exactly what happened here. You know, unfortunately, that takes place in churches. I've seen it happen. It takes place. What a sad, sad commentary that would even take place. But he had already made prayer his habit. It wasn't a new thing. It wasn't something I'm going to stand up for this now. I'm going to take a stand. I'm going to start praying. No, this was his normal thing. It's said right there that as he did aforetime. Boy, what an epitaph of life. As he did aforetime. This was his practice. This was his normal. I don't know how long he'd been in the king's house at this time, but this was an established practice and everybody knew about it. He had a time and he had a place, and that was something that wasn't going to change, even under harsh trial. It said of Paul that his manner, whenever he went to a new town, where was the first place he went? The synagogue. How do you know that? Because that was his manner. That was his normal practice. I heard somebody else say, they said, the first place he went was the synagogue. The second place, he checked out the jail because he figured he'd be there next. Now, I don't know that that's true, but he certainly he went to the synagogue first because the Bible tells us that was his manner. But and there's certainly many others that we could use as an example of consistency there, but both were well established in what they did and others knew it. His decision in this point, in fact, he didn't even have to make a decision at this point. That had been made a long time ago. Listen, I'm trying to teach my kids now. Make the decision now. So when the time comes, you don't even have to think about it. You already know what you're going to do. And it's something that we need to put into practice. When the decree was made, where did he go? He went home, threw the windows open, went to his normal place of power, didn't he? He went to prayer, and he got to work. But he wasn't trying to make a show. Again, it wasn't out of arrogance or a cocky rebellion, and neither was Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego when they wouldn't bow to the statue. They were just simply following through with a decision that they had already made. Now listen, the result, of course, if you read the story, God received his prayer, didn't he? Others received his testimony. What happened because he went and he threw the windows open and he prayed just like he normally did? He got hauled out and thrown in the den of lions, didn't he? But he had a huge testimony going with him. To the point where the king was like, he comes out the next morning, hey, Daniel, you still alive? And of course, Daniel calls out from the den of lions. I wonder if he just kind of cozied up to the lions. I wonder if Leo the lion is there and he's kind of fluffing up his mane. Hey, move that bone. I'm a little uncomfortable here. I don't know how it happened in the den of lions. I don't know if the angel stuck him over in the corner, wouldn't let him come out. I know he shut their mouths. I don't know what took place, but it sure is fun to think about. I mean, Jesus walked around in the fiery furnace with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Why couldn't Daniel cozy up? It's just fun things to think about there. But I do know that God shut the lions' mouths. I like to think, and I emphasize think. I like to believe about myself that if I were lined up against the wall with a bunch of other people, I'd run this scenario through my head. I like to think that I'd stand firm. If they put a gun to your head and they say, deny Christ. I like to think that I would not deny Christ. I honestly, when I say that, I really like to think, I like to believe that about myself. And I think everybody in here would say the same thing. But Peter said the same thing, didn't he? And they're standing around a coal of fires, fire of coals, excuse me. Of course, Peter denied Christ. When all the pressure came and when rubber meets the road, listen, we better make that decision before we get there, or we could have some issues. As a family, we were, this past week, I'm sharing the different things in our family devotions that I'm reading in my morning devotions. We looked at John the Baptist. John the Baptist told Herod, hey, it's wrong for you to have your brother Philip's wife. It's not right. It's wrong. He got thrown in prison as a result of it. Of course, Herod throws a wild party. Herodias' daughter comes out, dances before him, pleases him. He says, hey, I'll give you whatever you want. Well, she'd already been before charged by her mama to say, give me the head of John the Baptist. And because he had already said that among his peers, he couldn't go back on it. John stood up and said, this is wrong. Cost him his life. Listen, I like to think I'd stand firm. I had a coworker one time up in Alaska, and I told him, I was just really convicted over it. I hadn't really told him that I was a Christian. He knew there was something different, but definitely something different. But I told him, listen, we're riding down the road. We're in the company truck there. I'm in the passenger seat. I thought, you know what? I'm just going to say it. I said, Chad, I'm a Christian. I love God, and I just want you to know that. He's a preacher's kid. And he told me this, his exact words, you'll be like all the rest. I thought, how sad, growing up in a preacher's house, that he had never seen a good example of somebody standing up for what they believe in. How sad. Daniel didn't let trials change him. Here's the third thing. I got to hurry. Daniel didn't let time change him. If you get to go to Daniel chapter 9, in the first 4 verses there, I kind of need to read these. I'll read them quickly. In the year of Darius, the son of Ahasuerus, of the seed of the Medes, which was made king over the realm of the Chaldeans, in the year of his reign, I, Daniel, understood by books the number of the years whereof the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah the prophet, that he would accomplish 70 years in the desolations of Jerusalem. And I set my face unto the Lord God to seek by prayer and supplications with fasting and sackcloth and ashes, and it goes on from there. Now understand, we assumed at the beginning of this, Daniel was roughly 15-ish. I use that number very, very loosely. 15-ish. This is some 65 to 67-ish, give or take, years later. Daniel would be in his 80s, roughly, if we're doing the math right. And from the point where Daniel purposed in his heart not to defile himself with the king's meat, now just under 70 years later, Daniel is still standing for the same stuff, going by believing the same thing, heading the same direction, still throwing his windows open, almost 70 years later. I think of Caleb. Remember Caleb and Joshua? They were among the 12 spies that went into the land to spy out the land. 10 came back. 2, remember, 10 were bad and 2 were good. You remember that from Sunday school? Caleb and Joshua were the 2 good ones. Joshua's now, he was made the successor to Moses. They're going into the promised land. They've captured the promised land. Now Joshua's splitting up the land. And Caleb, he says, I was, in Joshua 14:6, he says, I was 40, now this is my paraphrase of it. I was 40 years when we went the first time. I'm 85 years now. I got just as much fight in me. I got just as much grit in me. He said, I wanted it then, I want it now. Give me that mountain where the giants are. 45 years later, he's now 85 years old. Much like Daniel. Daniel, in his uncompromising stance, he had a legacy of godliness about him, didn't he? Would to God we'd have a legacy of godliness about us. One day I want to look back and I want to see that time hasn't changed me. Physically, of course, we change, don't we? And even in our spiritual lives, we're going to grow. We're going to, as we read and as we learn, we may even see things a little bit different than we did before. Boy, there's some things that I didn't understand then that I understand now. There were some principles and convictions that I held 20 years ago that I've changed my stance on a little bit. I'm not talking about going backwards. I'm talking about going forwards. Duties may change. Positions may change. Geographics will change. All these different things will change, but I don't want what I believe to change. I still want to believe when what am I now? I'm 54. In 30 years, let's say that, roughly Daniel's age here. In 30 years, I want to look back and say, you know what? I still believe people get saved by the blood of Christ. I still want to believe that God's the creator of the universe. I still want to look out on creation, see his magnificence in creation. I still want to believe that the Spirit's guiding in my life, that it's ultimately important. I still want to know that there's prayer has power behind it. All these different things I want to stay. You know what? I want to end well. I want to stand before God one day, and I certainly haven't been perfect. I certainly am not perfect. But I want to hear, well done, thou good and faithful servant. I'm afraid he's going to say, you knucklehead, you could have done so much better. But you caved here. You had situational convictions here. You were afraid of what people thought here. You could have had a better testimony. But I want to end well. My mom and dad, they're in heaven now, both of them. But I look back, and I didn't agree with them on everything that they held to, but they left a legacy of godliness behind. At least in my eyes, they did. I want to do the same for my family. Any church I'm a part of, I want to do the same I want to have a testimony that goes beyond me there. I want to leave something behind that, hey, you remember that crazy guy? He did that, or he said this, or something like that. I want to do the same in any ministry I'm allowed to be a part of. I want to leave behind a legacy. Daniel didn't let time change him. Now, I have to be done, so I'm going to give these in bullet real quick, okay? How did he do it? It's okay to talk about the stuff, but you got to know how to do it. Here you go, right fast. Consistency in his life mattered. Yeah. Bullet one. Here's the second one. He was not ashamed of his convictions. Boy, people get ashamed of their convictions. That's pretty pathetic. And I put myself in that category. He kept nothing between him and his God. He kept throwing the windows open, didn't he? Here's one. He wasn't a charlatan putting on a show. There's way too many actors that call themselves Christians. Oh, wonderful to see you here, brother. Oh, goodness. Way to see you, sister. Last thing, he kept prayer central to his daily life. Listen, in our lives, Daniel, he had some things that he could not, would not, and ultimately did not change him. What is it in our lives that we would allow or are willing to allow to change our lives? Just a simple question, simple lesson, simple application from Daniel's life. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day and the privilege of allowing us to be here today. Please guide and direct in the following hour. In Jesus' name and amen.